Okay, today we're going to make a hanging basket. Okay, the materials that we've got here to make up our hanging basket today are, this is a 14-inch hanging basket. It's made of plastic, sides are nice and flexible as you can see on here, so that we can put the plants through the side easily. And we've got 4 chains on here, so that it's nice and solid when we're hanging the basket up in the air. And remember, it's going to be quite weighty by the time we're finished. Here we've got moss, which we're going to line the basket with. And we've got compost just here. Now this is a mix that we make here on the nursery ourselves. It's home produced compost, and we'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. And here we have a selection of plants. Now we've got trailing plants here, such as Nepeta and Bacopa. There's some different Bacopa just there, a trailing geranium, and we've also got some trailing petunias just here as well. And some upright plants for the top part of the basket. We've got some small marguerites, not the really big ones, but some smaller ones. We've got an upright growing fuchsia, and we will have an upright geranium as well when we're ready for that. What we've also got here with the plants is, just to show you the differences you can have, you can use plug plants, which are in this sort of size root system, or we've got here a fuchsia that we've been growing in the greenhouse here for a little while. You can just see the difference in the root system and the compost there. You can use both of them. We try to use a decent plant, so we're using a little bit more solid one to start with, which is that size. That's a 3.5 inch or 9 centimetre pot. Okay, so this is our hanging basket. What we'll do to start with, very important, take one of the chains out. There's nothing worse when you're making a hanging basket than to have made it and discover that you've buried the chain in the bottom of the basket. We'll be starting it again. So, chain out, hang it over the side. I always find that it's easier to work with the basket on a pot so it's the right height for me. So that's just there like that. Now this is the moss, the sphagnum moss that we talked about. This comes in nice and loose. Break it up into pieces, okay, so it's not just one big clump. And what we're trying to do in the bottom is almost to make a bit of a bird's nest by packing it around the side. Just tilt that to you so you can see it. Packing the moss around the side of the basket here. We're going to come up about 50 centimetres, which is 2 inches ish, up the side of the basket here, just by making a layer of moss. Okay, and we're just pushing it firmly in there. Now the object of the moss is to stop the compost falling out while the plant's growing. It will also help to keep the moisture into the basket, because it's easy for a basket to dry out, so the moss is very good at doing that. You can obviously use a liner if you want to, but a bit of a traditionalist around here, so we like to use moss. So that's that. Now what we're going to do is actually build this basket up in 2 or 3 layers as we're going. So that's going to be our first layer, and what we'll do now is to put some compost in. And once I've decanted that bag of our own compost mix here into a pot, so it's easier for me. Just going to drop that into there. Now using my knuckle, just going to push down nice and firmly on here, so that we're getting good volumes of compost into the basket, and so that we make available every little inch of space, because it's quite a lot happening in here. So to start with, what we're going to do is put a couple of trailing plants around the bottom. This is Nepeta, very smelly, catmint. Okay, big trail on it, grows to about 4 to 5 feet. It's about 1.5 metres down if it by the end of the season, if it's left to grow. Now what you'll notice here, one of the most important things we feel when making a hanging basket, is that we're poking the plants through from the inside to the outside of the basket. We're not coming through the other way, which is what a lot of people do. I would rather protect that lovely root system by coming from the inside and going out than I would do by ruining the top. To be honest with you, at this stage in the season, with all the growing that's got to happen, you're actually just as well probably to take the top off all those plants with careful pruning, because it's the roots that we're really looking to protect. Okay, so we'll just turn the basket round, lay this one on there, and then we're just firming it nicely so we're getting good contact between this root system and the compost in the basket just there. Okay, next we're going to try a trailing petunia. This is one called Tumbelina, which is a sort of bluey mauve colour. And once again, with the root system coming out here, just tap that compost off. There we go. We're going to tuck this one in through the side here, lay it inside, poke the foliage through, just like so, so that comes through. Just tuck that tightly up against the side of the hanging basket. Now we've got one more to go in here, and we're going to put in here a trailing fuchsia. This one's called Everberg, very traditional variety. I've been growing this for years, since I was a kid I think, this one. There we are. Once again, if you want to at this stage, just nip out the tops. I'll be a bit more gentle with the fuchsia because the leaves are more delicate. Just nip out the tops of these plants, and what you'll do in effect is you'll encourage it to bush out and grow quite well away. So that goes through there. What you've also got the option with, obviously, by doing that little bit of pruning just there, is we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 little plants that you could take from cuttings if you want as well. Okay, a bit of rooting compound, a bit of seed and cutting compost, and away you go. You've got another 4 little Everberg cuttings just there as well. So there we are, we've got first layer of plants in just there. What we're going to do now, pop a bit more moss in around the side, just breaking it apart again so it goes nice and far. Okay, very important, tuck the compost down the side here, right around the neck of that plant. We really don't want the compost to be falling out when we water the basket, and it's important to get right around the neck of that plant just there. Okay, just packing that one in, nice and firm. Okay, there we go. So when you get this moss out, it can come out in quite big clumps, so what you really need to do is to just break it apart, tease it apart, okay, so that it just goes that little bit further. Tucking him down behind there. So we're creating this sort of bird's nest type look on the inside of the basket here, where we've got everything around the outside and a nice dish in the middle. Okay, and then just packing that down there, tucking it behind the neck of the plant again. Let's lift that up just there. I'll just tilt that slightly just to there. We'll now be able to see we've got our four plants that we've put into the basket here so far on the first layer. We've got our moss around the outside, and we're ready now to start building up to the next layer. Okay, so now we've built our basket up to 2 layers now. If I just tilt this way, you can see we've got our first layer down the bottom there, which had the fuchsia and the peter, the copra in it. We've now done a second layer with some petunias, a trailing geranium, some more of a copra in it. What we're ready to do now is just to finish the basket off to the rim, and then we'll put some plants in the top. So once again, getting our compost. Now, I said earlier we'll talk a bit more about this. This is our own mix of compost. It's a blend of peat, it's a blend of loam, Kettering loam, and something called perlite, which is an expanded rock to help drainage and aerate the compost. And we also put in it some slow release fertiliser, and we put in it some general purpose fertiliser for instant use. Now, the slow release fertiliser is very interesting. That slowly releases the fertiliser over a period of about 3 to 4 months. Okay, so now we're just carrying on filling this up with the compost. Now, as we said about the compost, it is a blend of peat, of Kettering loam, of perlite, which is this white expanded rock. It's a bit grubby white at the moment. This white expanded rock. Now that helps with drainage and also helps to aerate the compost. We have slow release fertiliser in there, which you probably can't see so easy, which is these little yellow bits, look a bit like bird food. That's slow release fertiliser that will slowly feed the compost and the plants over a period of about 10 to 12 weeks, so it should avoid you having to actually water with feed in it for a period of time. Really good product. And we also have in here, in this compost, a material, a water retaining gel. Now that really does help. It's stuff that looks like a granule, looks a bit like sugar until you water it, and then it swells up to about 30 or 40 times its size, and is really good at retaining the moisture. So that's very good for hanging baskets. So there we are, we filled ourselves up to the rim. What we're going to do now is try and put some more of these plants in the top. Now the issue here is trying to avoid to put the plants down through where these roots are coming through. So what we're going to do is just dig a little hole in here, and we're going to put on this side just here, we're going to put an agaranthemum. This one's called Double Rose, or a Marguerite. Now this is a slightly dwarf version. And once again, just to keep this nice and compact at the moment, I'm going to take the tops out of this plant here. There we go, that's all those, and that will make it a lot more bushy in the future. Add that to my little cuttings pile. So this comes over here, just digging our hole, sitting him in the top, pushing the plant compost around it. There we go, just bedding that one in there, giving it a little turn around to the side. Now here, this is a bid ends, a yellow flower called bid ends. Just going to make another little hole to the side there. And in here we're going to put my favourite old plant, that's that snow-capped fuchsia. Just bed him in the top there. Coming round again. I always like to, when we're planting a pot or a container, anything like that, we try to put 3 or 5 plants in the top of something, okay? I always find that an even number of plants never quite works out properly. And put in here, we're going to put a little trailing geranium in. This one's called Vinco, which is a nice pink coloured one just there. What you'll also notice I'm doing here is I'm putting all these labels into a pot. So if I remember by the end of the season, if I really like one of these plants and I can remember where they are, we get the labels out, we can try and repeat it again next year. You could put them back in the basket, but I think by the end of the season they're not likely to be there. So here we are, another little hole going in the side here. We've got a bit more of an upright one more I'd rather put a white one in this side. Okay. Nice little root system around the bottom there, nice white roots, that's what you're looking for on bedding plants and patio plants at this time of year. Nice white roots, show nice fresh growth. Okay, come around once more over to this side here. One more, this is the 5th one we were talking about. Just trying to squeeze the plant down near that Nepeta root just there. Teasing it gently apart. On this side just here we've got one more. This is a nice variety of Nemesia. Compost off there, that's got the red and the white petals on it at the same time. So it's a lovely little flower, that one. And this one's going to spread, grow over the side of the plant, the side of the basket. Here we are. Nice and neat. Just ease that together slightly so it fits in the hole properly. Wriggling in, push the compost down. Now you'll see in the middle here, we've actually got a dome of compost here now. Which is good because, as I say, we've got a lot of plants in this basket and the compost is going to have to support them right the way through. With these patio plants in here rather than seed raised bedding plants, this is going to last us right the way through to October. So it's all got to have some good staying power. And just lastly, to finish off, we'll put on a little bit of moss on the top. Now, A, for decorative purposes, but B, it also has quite a good function in that it helps to stop evaporation of water from the soil. Okay, it's the biggest problem with hanging baskets is drying out, so obviously anything we can do to keep the moisture in that compost is really important. Okay, just laying it around the side here now, and around the sides. Okay, now you remember right at the start we said about our chain. Just remember how interesting that would be if this was actually tucked in the middle still. Just lift him up, get the chain out from underneath the basket. Okay, so that's the basket finished. We've just got to pull this back over the top here, chain back into here. So we're back where we were to start with. And there we are, so let's just hang him up here, have a little look at him. There we are. So, now you can see at the moment it looks a little bit bedraggled, everything's pointing downwards rather than upwards. I guess about another couple of weeks. Try and hang it in a greenhouse, garage with a window in it, but whatever you do, pop it inside. If you haven't got anywhere to hang it, put it on a pot like this on the floor and keep it inside and let it grow together. And I'm saying in about 2 to 3 weeks you'll start to see it forming the basket. And then once the threat of frost is finished, which probably will from the mid to the end of May, it'll be time to hang it outside then.